True crimers, welcome to Break the Case. I'm your host. I'm Jen Coffindafer. I have over 28 years of federal investigative experience, and I'm so excited to have you here to cuss and discuss cases. Specifically tonight, we are going to do a update on the Caleb Harris case. Caleb Harris, as many of you know, went missing, a Corpus Christi young man, 21 years old, who went missing about 9 weeks ago. We're going to have an update from his father, Randy Harris. Sit back. It's a good one. Thank you for joining us. Father, and Tony, who is a close personal friend of the family. And really, we just wanted to get Caleb's face, his name, everything revigorated. A lot has been happening behind the scenes, and due to a lot of reasons, he hasn't really been able to come forward and just talk about Caleb's case. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to give you some updates. We're going to give you some interesting points. And I'm so happy to have you both here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
First, let's start with this. I want to just tell our audience exactly about the case, because some people are just tuning in, believe it or not for the first time. There's a lot of cases going on in true crime and in the missing world, and some people come on to cases later. But essentially, Caleb Harris was living in Corpus Christi, Texas, 21-year-old young man attending college, huge lover of the outdoors, hunting and fishing and loving every minute of it. Family, young man, raised in a very conservative and wonderful family home. He has a sister, mother, and the father you're seeing here. And he went missing on March 4th. And specifically what happened was there were details in terms of him playing with his dog and then later waiting on an Uber Eats. We're going to get in more in the weeds on that because there's been some developments. But essentially, he has not been heard from since. Everything, his car keys, his vehicle, his clothing, nothing was taken with him except a cell phone, which he had for only a brief time, did a couple of snaps, and then it went cold. But Randy, will you catch us up on kind of a newly invigorated timeline we're looking at?
Sure, absolutely. And I also want to say, a lot of the pictures that y'all see out there of him fishing, but I'll add a little bit that, he is actually a really good musician, and he could pick up any string instrument and play it, and loved playing with his friends. Never went out anywhere and played, but very good musically inclined young man. Also, he loves to cook. He's an excellent cook. So they cook constantly. So I really wanted to add that in because we're always talking about fishing, but he's a really a good cook and just an avid guitar, bass musician as well. So try to throw that in there as well. Updating on the timeline, we're still kind of in similar cases where we had the 1 o'clock video with him walking the dog with his friends that they had just got that night, texting us different things that he was going to be doing the next day, fishing as well, going to school, ordered his Uber Eats lunch for the next day. 2:44 in the morning, back out walking the new dog. They just got the dog like at 10:15 that night. So it was something new, something exciting. And 2:44, he snaps my daughter a picture of the puppy. It's just a real quick, half a second snap. And then 2:45 orders Uber Eats. Then his phone went dead about 2:58. There are some anomalies out there that, we don't quite know timeline wise where his phone may or may not have pinged or in another snap that he sent to a friend. Those were popping up around 3:03, which would be after the time that his phone was turned off or went dead. And then there was a 3:12 possible ping. Originally, a mile and a half or so down the road. And we narrowed it once the additional authorities were able to look at it, it narrowed it down to an area that was closer. But it just depends on the towers and how they all work. But there was a 312 possible ping. And then as far as new developments go, we had an eyewitness come forward that felt like he saw him 0.8 of a mile down the road, underneath, just walking underneath the bridge with the dog. And that was about, give or take, 335, 340. This gentleman follows the same route every day. He's been doing that for 10 years. And, of course, foggy and hard to see, but he was able to explain in pretty good detail with the little white dog. So there's definitely a possible eyewitness, which would have been around that 335, 340 range.
And Randy, does that line up with the ping, the 312 ping? You said 0.8 of a mile, and then does that make a little sense in terms of the phone ping?
Actually a different location, definitely a different opposite location of where the possible ping. And again, on those pings, talking to a lot of the different forensics people, we don't know for sure if the phone was talking to a tower because the phone was off, but it's certainly possible. Our phones tend to talk to phones all day long. If I'm sitting next to you, my phone is talking to your phone. And so it's very possible that it was, even though it was turned off, it was possibly reaching out to a tower somewhere.
It's very interesting, I think, because with the Secret Service involvement, I don't know if last time we talked how involved the Secret Service was, but the Secret Service is amazing at counterfeit cases. They also handle credit card fraud cases through these memos of understanding with the FBI. And then, of course, they handle security for high echelon government officials, right? The president, vice president. But one area that they are also very adept at is cellular telephone analysis. And I believe that the reason the Secret Service has been brought in this case, in fact, it's the only reason that would make any sense, is to assist with the cellular telephone analysis. So would you say, Randy, right now that law enforcement is in the throes of trying to figure out those 3 a.m. additional pings, if you will, after the phone was already turned off?
Yes, absolutely. And you are correct. In this situation, they've been brought in to assist with the technical data, and that's what they've done. They also have his iWatch and his iPad, and so I'm sure that they are using that to analyze those pings or any other information they might be able to glean from those devices.
Can you talk to us a little bit about each of the devices they have, because it's numerous?
Yes, they have his MacBook, and it's secured right now with them. His iWatch, his iPad. Additionally, they do have his Xbox, and they do have the router that was in the apartment. So they have a lot of devices that I'm sure they're using to just see what's going on, find different things that maybe he was chatting with people, or different games he was playing, things like that would have chat rooms in them, maybe.
And just to be clear, for the people who are either turning in or haven't heard this part, but as far as his roommates, as far as the people in the apartment complex and so forth, that has all been ruled out in terms of foul play. And what we're really looking at is what happened after he left some distance, if you will, from the complex. Am I stating that correctly?
Yes, I mean, that's what we're looking at is, why would he have been out? Was he helping somebody? We don't know. He is the kind of kid that would, oh, hey, let me help you change a tire. Let me go throw the dog back in the apartment, and I'll come back out and help you. But we don't know 100%, exactly where he was. We just have these different pings and, different information that could have been down at the bridge, or he could have been in the total opposite direction over by the pain management center based on a ping.
Right, that's a big distance, and I'm hopeful that between the FBI's CAS team combined with the Secret Services team, that they will be able to narrow that down using the Axiom and using the other databases that they have at their hands to really dive into this. Without that information, no one can know in the public, but I guarantee they are honing in on that cellular device and all their device information. I wanted to talk really quick about the subpoenas and the subpoena returns. In every investigation, I can tell you as an investigator, and then of course as a victim family watching it, there's nothing more frustrating than the carriers that you subpoena, whether it's in regard to cellular telephone, emails, information about anything, because to get the information legally so it could be used in court, if again, because you have to plan on foul play, even if you don't know it is foul play, those delays can be so frustrating. And I'm here to tell you, I was the squeakiest wheel you've ever been around. Just setting my alarm on the phone every day on those people. And because the problem is with delayed subpoena returns is now you have another issue, because you got something back a month later and you say, oh my gosh, this phone per the geofencing was right in that area. But where is it now? And you're a month behind. So now you have to subpoena again. And it's a horrible succession of really issues. And then sometimes that can lead you to another phone. But again, by then everything's so delayed. What has your family been going through in this vein?
Exactly what you said. It's very excruciating because, we want the information and we want it now. And so do they. And having those delays and trying to understand, nobody, you've been around it, but we're not prepared for anything like this. Nobody is. And so understanding the system, understanding, and the police, with the subpoenas, some of them have come in real quick. They were able to get some in within 2 days, 3 days. Some of them been 10 days, some of them been 4 weeks. So, unfortunately, too, it's an ongoing, like you said. I mean, every time they get a data dump, it creates additional subpoenas. So they're writing as many warrants and subpoenas as possible based on the information as fast as it comes in. And that information isn't just coming into CCPD. It goes out to all of the authorities at one time. And so there's an army working on it, but that's probably one of the biggest, hardest things for us is the time, because we're in our 9th week, and it's hard to understand the time delays that we're going through. We want Caleb back now, and that's hard to understand.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the fact we are at the 9 weeks. What is law enforcement telling you? And I understand it's probably not going to be much, but just in terms of, the hope factor, the criminal investigation, the missing case, what, if anything, are they giving you that you're at liberty to talk about? Just, where are they? Where's their compass?
Right now, I don't know that they have a true north compass just yet. Of course, we don't want to do anything to impede the investigation, so they're not really giving us information that would be nice to have, to be able to share and say, hey, yeah, they're doing this way, or they're doing this. As it's grown into a possible, where he was taken or kidnapped, it is a missing person with endangerment. So, if you were to ask, is Caleb still alive? We all are obviously hopes that he is, and we feel in that situation that he definitely probably is, and we just hope and pray that he is. And they can't give us any guarantees. All they can say it's a yes or no question, but with full intentions to be able to find him.
Well, I think anytime that there is no indicia of a crime, of a murder, in other words, they found no blood evidence, there's no evidence of a struggle, there's nothing that's been seen on any video of a kidnapping or a horrible event like this, I think it's so promising that in fact he is alive. At least we don't have any evidence that he isn't. And that's always good news. No one found in a car, no bodies found. So I think that certainly, personally watching this case from the beginning, I have a lot of hope that he's alive and will be found. And I think that's why even a couple of those details you just said, they're important, not only in understanding what a great kid and well-rounded kid Caleb was, but the music piece of it. Keeping an eye out for somebody who might be strumming on a guitar or somebody with the capability of cooking, that being a reference if they hear something about Caleb. I think all of those details in terms of him and his personality and his abilities are all extremely important. I'd like to talk a little bit about tips. What kind of tip volume is coming in? Any indication there?
There is a lot of tips coming in, and thankfully there is. The more, the better. As they get them in, they disseminate what's a real tip, what's maybe they get a lot of suggestions. So, they have to weed through the suggestions, and they follow up on every single tip. There's not a tip that's not followed up with a phone call and an interview. But there has been some credible tips that have come in. Most recently this weekend, there was somebody thought they saw him in Milton, Florida. And so that created, the authorities contacting that local area and going to that business and talking with all of those employees that felt like they may have seen him. It didn't pan out, as far as that goes. But the silver lining to that is people in Florida are seeing his flyers and seeing his face on shows like yours or any of the national syndicated shows, and it's a blessing for us that his image is out there that far away, because we don't know where he is, and it's certainly plausible.
Well, and I always say time and time again, it doesn't matter how many people you have following your platform on whatever venue you're in social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you recirculate photos, you recirculate the name, you recirculate the circumstance so that people have an understanding, because you just never know that one person that might see that of yours as it proliferates. And, there might be that clue that leads to finding Caleb. Talk a little bit about the reward that's been offered.
We do have a $50,000 reward, and leading to the information with us finding him and hopefully finding him safe is what the reward is showing. And we're hoping that somebody will say something and see something, or see something and say something.
Right. And anytime, again, that the monetary reward is out there, I think it just provides incentive for if anybody's seeing anything. And I think that is another item that's sort of gone by the wayside. People understanding, for those people that maybe wouldn't help otherwise, there's $50,000 out there waiting for you if you can help this family lead to Caleb's return is so, so important. I want to dive into, we're not going to dive into, we're going to touch on it. And that's because I always go through all the questions that our Twitter audience, X audience, I'll always call it Twitter, asks. In fact, if you even go on the app, it says Twitter still. It's hilarious. But in any event, and that is about Reddit. And I want to make it clear that anything going on that platform, and we're just going to leave it here, is being looked at by law enforcement, not only Reddit, but anything else. So in regard to whatever media that might be important, that was either on the Xbox or on his computer, anything like that, in any direction, is being looked at by law enforcement. And you can rest assured they're either going to make an inroad or it's going to be a dead end. But speculation in the social media arena is just really not helpful, because it's really detracting from what we can do. And what we can do is keep Caleb's face and name out there. That's our mission. That should be all of our missions. And in knowing, I think, though, the last place he was seen, the possibility he was seen under that bridge with his dog, which meant he might have returned the dog, because the dog was returned back home and then went out again for some reason that we don't know or understand at this point. That we understand that there's a possible cell phone ping at 3:12, which adjusts the timeline. But unfortunately, we don't have hardcore answers at this point, because we just don't have what we need at our hands to utilize to know, but law enforcement knows. Can you tell us a little bit about all the agencies involved, what their meeting time is, when your meeting time is? Just bring us to that inner circle.
Of course, Corpus Christi Police Department. They're the point contact on everything. And then they have the U.S. Marshals helping. They have the FBI helping. And then the Texas Rangers are, they're more of an overseer in the case, where they're watching and making sure that every T's crossed and I's dotted. And then Secret Service is helping with the digital aspect, but we try to meet every week, which we have been face to face at the police department, and they've been gracious to always take our appointments and meet with us. And then they have daily meetings every morning. All the agencies meet, I think, around 9:30, do a WebEx, and then, like I said, normally Wednesdays or Thursdays, we're meeting with them as well.
Well, and I can say, Tony and Randy, to both of you, every time you guys give me a call, the first words out of my mouth are, "Did you find him?" That's how hopeful I am that one day I'm going to ask that question and you're going to say, "Jen, got him."
Yeah.
And that it's going to be in very positively. A lot of people want to ask the question, and that is endangerment, right? Initially, he was missing, but it went to quickly, I think within 48 hours, Randy or Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, endangered. And isn't that my understanding? Because they immediately knew this wasn't, or believed this wasn't some sort of runaway situation, but more unusual and suspicious circumstances that led them to believe there was much more to the story and that he could be endangered. Is that correct summary?
Correct. Tony, you can butt in here too. When I first got there, the first responding officer who had already been there once, after talking to me and after understanding that this is not normal, this is not anything that would be, and especially with him preparing everything he was preparing for, the next day, week, month, the summer job, school next year, good grades, everything is positive. And so it was pretty apparent something went wrong, something wasn't right. So he recognized that right off the bat and made it a national missing persons case, and then it was upgraded to endangerment because because of the missing evidence and the things like that. Is there was definitely something's not right with the case, and so that created and they may have even done that quicker. Normally they don't even do missing persons for 48 hours, and so to do it that day was pretty amazing for them for that officer to see that, hey, something's not right here. This is not normal.
Well, I always like to address, as I mentioned earlier, any Twitter communications or audience questions. So let me just peruse my sheet and make sure I did not miss anything. Okay, I did right off the bat. You put on these glasses, you can see a lot. Victimology. So a lot of people are asking the question about victimology, which in a nutshell for me as an investigator is I look at the victims and I'm saying, what made them a victim? What was it going on in their life? What relationships did they have that would have led to being a victim? Whoever asked that question, and I apologize for not writing your name down, it's a great question. And certainly law enforcement, that's one of the first things they look at is lifestyle questions, questions about who they were intertwined with, and so on. So just to answer your question, yes, law enforcement is going to be taking a close look of that victimology and seeing if they can generally hone in on who they might have been in the area with. In other words, who else is walking underneath that bridge? Who else is at an adjacent apartment? Who else was anywhere in that close proximity at the time frame? And that, of course, is why geofencing becomes so important, because they're going to be able to dial down on all the phones used around his phone. Let me go on to a question about whether he was meeting somebody. We just don't know, other than the Uber Eats that was dropped on the porch, but that he had called for at about 2:45, Randy. Other than that, we don't have specific information about meetings. Is that correct?
That's correct. Best we know, it was dropped off about 3:20. Is that right, Tony? 3:20, 3:25. The Uber Eats there, and that brought up something else. Is he's out walking the dog, brings the dog back in, and steps back out to meet the Uber Eats out, in the front of the complex there, or at the corner of the complex. We don't know, but the Uber Eats driver was definitely interviewed several times and cleared of any nefarious, operations as far as the Uber Eats person goes.
That's a very good point. I know in the Idaho case, a lot of people wanted to blame the Uber driver, not the Uber Eats, but the Uber driver. And then there was an Uber Eats, right, that dropped off the, the hamburger for Xana, blah, blah. So it's always important, I think, in any investigation to rule out who law enforcement does not believe was involved, just for focusing in on who could be involved.
Well, we even went as far as trying to locate other Uber drivers in that area that may have seen something, just picking up people, Lyft, any kind of ride share type business, if they were in that area, because the kids are moving all the time. There's kids waking up and going to work out. There's kids coming home from working at the movie theater. It's just they're college kids. They're all doing different stuff all at all hours of the night.
Right, exactly. Especially in a college community like this, where everyone is going to college and they keep different hours. I mean, these are 20, 21, 22-year-old kids, and their hours aren't the same as 40-year-old and 50-year-old parents. So we can all remember back into those days. I wanted to ask one important last question. Well, actually two. One is about the shoes. Did the other person who had the sighting under the bridge mention shoes? I think if somebody didn't have their shoes on, that would have been a key thing to notice. Where are we at with the shoes, Randy?
That was the one thing that he couldn't answer, whether he was barefooted or with shoes. You got to realize that night was just an epic foggy night. The fog had rolled in, and it's right there on the coastline. And so, he explained him in pretty good detail. But that was the one thing, Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, we did ask, was he wearing shoes or not? And he could not answer that. Honest, he just couldn't answer it.
Yeah,
Really
he
didn't
didn't.
know.
He didn't actually. He didn't actually notice if he was or wasn't. And I know there's been a lot of conversation about this guy and his credibility. When I tell you that this guy was very vivid with what he saw, and I can't elaborate on that, but there was other people under the bridge, and he was just as vivid with the description of them as he was of Caleb. And everybody, got all up in arms about, timeline. And I mean, if we're being factual, as I said on Justin's show, you don't have a timeline right now because we were led to believe early on that 312 phone ping was an anomaly. So, and we were told that by multiple different agencies. So if what we know is there was a snap that was sent at 3:03 in the morning, it is entirely logical that he's under the bridge at 3:35 to 3:40. And how he got the dog back is irrelevant because from 3:40 till, let's say, 9 o'clock in the morning, there was all the time in the world for him to get Jenny back, leave again. We don't know what we don't know, but we know that we can definitively say that we believe this witness to be credible. Now, again, we don't know what we don't know. So can we 100% tell you that person under that bridge was Caleb? No, we can't tell anybody that. But there's also a lot of other things that we speculate to be true that we can't definitively know. So we vetted this guy pretty good, I can tell you that.
So let me ask another question about the shoes. As I recall, he has a size 15 shoe. All his shoes were, 13. I thought it was 15.
15 shoes, yeah. 13 shoes is not big enough.
Oh, yeah. Listen, I wear a 5, so an 8 looks gigantic, a boat to me. But yes, to your point, thank you. Size 13 shoe. And they were supposedly present and accounted for. I can tell you, being a college mama, I have no idea how many shoes my kid may or may not have. I might know about a couple of pair because he got them for Christmas. But do you all feel confident about this shoe off or no shoes? And then secondly, did Caleb walk around barefoot all the time? Some people do everywhere.
He did. I mean, he would walk around barefoot a lot. We feel confident for 2 reasons. One, the 1 o'clock video showed him barefooted out in the parking lot. The pretty well know what he wears because he's a large size, and mom buys him most of his shoes, so he really doesn't go out and buy shoes. It's just not something he would do. So we pretty well have an inventory. I would say 99.9% sure we have all the shoes that he would have. So yeah, that's why we feel like he was barefooted.
Well, and for city folks, that always sounds odd, but for a country girl like me and many people who are outdoors people, we like to feel that grass between our toes. We go barefoot in a lot of places that we shouldn't. So I think it is really important to note that this wasn't odd for Caleb to do, to be barefoot. And in fact, as you recalled, he was on film that night at 1 a.m. playing with the dog barefoot. So I just wanted
most of the time he's wearing sandals of some sort, flip flops, Birkenstock type, shoes, and we have all those, so we know they're there. Yeah.
It wouldn't be odd.
No.
All right. I'm going to get to my last question for you. And it's really not a question. It was a discussion that we've had, meaning Randy and Tony and I, when we were discussing kind of what could be done separate from what law enforcement is doing that I thought law enforcement probably isn't doing. In fact, I'm pretty certain. And that is really looking at homeless areas, encampments, soup kitchens, anything along that line, because you just never know. You never know what could have transpired in these last 9 weeks. And it's imperative that sort of that is checked off. I always bring up the case of Connor Jack Oswald. Now, he had autism, but nevertheless, at 17, he just disappeared. And they didn't find him for, I believe, 2.5 years later, past 2.5 years, close to 3 years later. And they found him, and he was homeless. And, he just had a anomaly where he left and for whatever reason couldn't find his way back. It's just something you want to check off again, that nobody has seen him. And so I was so excited to talk to you and find out that that's going to be a mission that you guys take on starting this weekend, I think you said.
We did. My father-in-law and I went to Corpus Sunday morning with that purpose, and we met downtown with a group. It's kind of a funny name. They're called Tacos Not Bombs, and they feed every Sunday. It's just a great organization, and they go down there and they a lot of home. They feed anybody, not necessarily homeless. Whoever shows up, they're going to feed. And right. They have clothes, they have coffee and tea, and we were able to help a little bit, set up tables and stuff. And then as everybody's lined up, my father-in-law went through the line and actually had a Spanish-speaking person that tagged along with him and spoke Spanish. And then I went around there was pods of people sitting on the ground in the park, and so I went around and visited with a lot of pods. And I got to tell you, really incredible people. I mean, just very nice, very open to listening, and didn't really run into anybody that didn't know the case, that hadn't heard about it. And they're all very attentive. They were all just it was a blessing to be able to visit and meet with people that, and I know some of them are homeless, and it's a lifestyle. I met one lady who's ex-military, and it's sad to see, but she's okay. She's there, and so we did that. And then we also went to a couple of the churches that were doing things. And then tomorrow we'll be additionally going out and meeting with the police first. And then we're going to go to a couple of locations where they gather and feed the homeless people and just talk, to see if they've seen anything, heard anything. They're pretty connected to what goes on the ground. And we're hoping that maybe we can make some inroads. Even if we don't, we've connected with them. We've given them flyers. They see what Caleb looks like, and I genuinely think that they will be helping.
Jennifer,
one
thing I'll say is Randy can tell you I'm completely on board with the homeless idea. It was about 3-4 weeks ago. Is that right, Randy, where we sat down and came up with a plan as to what to do with our search and rescue people? Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we were having dinner one night, and I told him, I said, we need to go to Port Aransas, which was a spring break area. We had some quote unquote sightings over there, which they went over there. And then I told Randy, I said, Randy, look, we could take our search and rescue people and we could have them go work the homeless communities. And, it didn't turn out to where that was the best idea to send strangers, people that were volunteering into those communities. But we felt strongly about a month ago that they might be a great resource, and they might know something. They might have seen something. They might be able to be on the lookout. We strongly agree that's a good idea.
Well, we did with the search and rescue groups that were down there helping, and the volunteers helping. Unfortunately, they did run into a lot of the homeless camps, and the first impression is, they're there to do something, and we had to we have one volunteer that he got run out of one of the homeless camps with a machete before the guy realized, hey, I'm not a cop. I'm not here to move you. I'm not here to do anything. We're here to help find, my friend's son. And then they open up, arms open wide,
Yeah.
and so it was and we've had a lot of volunteers that had that interaction with that community.
That's great to hear. And another thing, and this literally just popped in my mind. I'm sure maybe you guys have already done this. I don't know, but everything that you have in English should be in Spanish too.
Yes.
And visiting the Spanish community, like the Spanish churches, and handing out Spanish flyers. Do y'all have Spanish flyers?
We do, and actually one of the famous fishing tackle shops actually did a great flyer in Spanish and English, and then that picked up. And there's been a lot of people that we'll never know. There's no way to thank everybody, but there's been a lot of people, from what I understand, just created their own, $50,000 reward flyer in Spanish and got it out. And that's another area we really want to push down south a lot further into South Texas and over the border. So we're trying to figure out some avenues there that we can reach out to the border towns and reach out even across the border. Just it's no different than somebody seeing him in California or Florida or wherever. We need to be able to reach out to those places. And that really brings up another point that I'd like to reach out personally, if it's okay.
Oh, please.
We have a girl down there. Her name is Amber, and she's been amazing. 21-year-old girl. I've never met her, but she has gone out and organized the flyers and organized everything, and just has an army of people that she's working with. And I can't tell you how many thousands of brochures this young lady has just stepped up. And her name is Amber. She's 21, college student, and she's just been just a godsend, in that area and getting the flyers out. And we thank her from the bottom of our hearts. I mean, it's been amazing.
Well,
Jennifer,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tony.
I can tell you that number. She's distributed over 15,000 flyers. Now, when I say distributed flyers, let's not get handing flyers out in a box confused with what they've done. They have spreadsheets with every single flyer grouping that's been given out, with notes as to what businesses these flyers were put up on. And this has been going on for well over a month. And last I checked, we were literally at 15,000 flyers in different cities that had been stuck on somebody's window or handed to somebody personally.
Another thing is the local pharmacies, the Walgreens, CVS's. We've done the flyers in a quarter size sheet, and they're stapling them to the prescriptions. When people go through the line, and I'll be connecting with them again tomorrow, and I've got another big box of just those quarter size flyers so that they can continue to do that as well.
What an amazing outreach. And I just want to say that in all these cases, and it seems like it's very strong in the Caleb Harris case, is that while, sometimes not good actors can be involved in the disappearance of people in one way or the other, it's 100-fold the wonderful people that come out, that are selfless, that don't know the families, that just want to help. And you see it on social media, you see it in communities, you see it nationwide, people wanting to help and do whatever they can to help bring home people like Caleb. And
it's pretty amazing.
Gives you hope.
Yes, it does. And I don't want to interrupt you, but I can tell you story after story. And Tony's witnessed this. I mean, he walked into a convenience store, and he's talking to the guy, and there's this little lady there, and she goes, "Is that the dad?" And he's like, "Yeah." And she runs out and grabs. I mean, I'm just sitting there. She grabs my hand and just starts praying right there. And I don't know this lady. but she's praying. Yesterday, we ran into the lady, the same at Whataburger, and just the outpouring of prayers and support has just been amazing. And we're from all over the world. And I got to say, it's that's what's keeping us going. That's our adrenaline is coming from the amount of people that are just out there praying, that we're going to find him. We're going to find him soon. And, our Lord will be glorified through it all.
Yeah, I think that's such a beautiful message. And please, Randy, Tony, have I left anything out? Any other points you want to drive home? Please feel free to mention those. If we've covered everything, let me know that too.
Yeah, Randy does a pretty good job of keeping a muzzle on me. So I think unless he's got something else he wants me to share, I think I'm good.
I'm good. I do appreciate a lot of the tips that have come in on social media as well, and those are followed up. And I think everybody just keep your eyes and ears open. Somebody knows something, and continue with prayers and support, and we're going to find him. We're going to find him soon.
Well, I couldn't agree more that someone knows something. I mean, I just can't agree any more on that strongly. And so that's why we need to keep getting the message out. We need to let everybody know there's $50,000 at play. And hopefully, maybe even this recording will lead to that positive tip that results in Caleb being brought home.
Yeah, keep sharing.
For everyone who tuned in, I really appreciate it. I know Randy and Tony do too. Tony, the way that you have supported the family, Tony's not getting paid a dime. Tony is doing this as an advocate for the family, to just be that weather vane to keep the storm, under control, to keep the emotions, to try to provide the guidance. And Randy, for your steadfast advocacy and care and love for your son that shines through you every time you speak. And I know your wife and extended family are all at home. It's a very emotional and very tough situation. Not everyone is, for some it's very difficult to be in front of the camera, but that should never be mistaken for lack of love, concern, caring, outrage, fear, everything that the extended family members are going through. So Tony, Randy, thank you again. Thank you so much for joining us on Break the Case. If you like what you saw, please hit that subscribe button and the like button. I so appreciate each of you. We have weekly interviews of individuals, and I'm starting to do a lot of lives that obviously very entrenched and concerned about the Karen Reed, John O'Keefe case. So we'll be also documenting that and doing a lot of informative, hopefully, videos on that as well. Until next time, everyone, may justice be served.